Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the hockeythinktank.com, a website for all players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We are bringing on Craig Custance, the head of creative development at The Athletic, the biggest online sports publication in the world. He also just wrote the book, The Franchise, The Business of Building Winning Teams. Guys, I read this book in 2 days. I could not put it down. It was unbelievable. Basically, he tells the stories of 10 of the most successful general managers in the NHL, guys like Brad Treliving and Lou Lamoriello and Julien Brisebois and Kyle Dubas. And man, this was just a phenomenal read. So we got to get right into it with Craig on this podcast episode. Before we do get over to Craig, though, let's bring on the talent of the podcast. A one, Jeffrey Jehu Lavecchio. Jehu, what's up today, buddy?
Jehu, well played, sir.
I'm going to see you this week. I'm going to see you days, man.
I know. I mean, excited to see you. Anyways.
Yeah, we are memorializing our grandpa who passed away. Yes.
So it'll be
the whole family's getting together. It's been the first time we're going to be together since he passed. So obviously going to be tough, but
it'll be tough. We'll have a lot of fun. The initial seeing grandma is going to be extremely, extremely tough.
Have you not seen grandma yet?
No, because I was waiting for Sophie to be born.
Yeah.
And then she was born, and then we couldn't be around people for 4 weeks, so then that's like right about now. So yeah, that'll be tough. But on a lighter note, dun, 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 starting off like that, Grandpa's a great man. We were lucky to have him. Anyways, perspective helps. I was going to go a little different direction here about just moms and dads out there. Just let me give you a little standing O real quick. I'm giving you a little standing O. Man, parenting's tough, bro. Parenting's tough, and all you moms and dads out there who are slaying, good for you. The whole no directions, I get more directions when I buy a new iPhone. I get more directions when I buy a new piece of gym equipment. And you make a baby. It's this beautiful little miracle, and they send you on your way and say, "Figure it out, buddy." And so it's been a whirlwind, obviously, but perspective's everything. We talk about all the time, and the longer that I have been a dad, going on week 5 now, the more I absolutely respect mom and your mom and Aunt Kim and grandma and everybody who's a parent out there. That's it's been really, really humbling and really cool, and it just makes me look at all my friends that have kids and are good moms, good dads, and are successful and able to provide for their family, and it makes me respect them even more. It's pretty cool.
It is the hardest / most rewarding job in the entire world.
Yeah.
No question. And you're living it, right? So I'll get, for all the listeners, I'll get a text from Vex every now and again. How do you do, what? I don't understand.
About every third day.
And we're actually pretty close. We're only a couple weeks away to our 6-year anniversary of the podcast, which is kind of crazy. And
dude,
our
consistency on this, by the way, listeners, you're welcome. No, but seriously, our consistency on recording this podcast for 6 years is actually insane. Steph, we love you. We've barely missed. I would love if I don't even know it's possible since we've been on a couple of different platforms to go back over the 6 years and see how many weeks we weren't able to record a new episode.
You can count them on one hand.
Yeah,
no, 2 hands, because we did a few lost episodes where we take a episode that we did
right
to go and kind of because they were awesome and
but it's probably 10.
Yeah, if
10 weeks, maybe in 6 years.
Well, you and I are grinders, man.
We are, but I'm proud of us for that. They talk about most podcasts don't make it to 50 episodes. Like almost all podcasts don't make it to 50 episodes, like high 90 percentiles, and we barely missed for 6 years. So just a little, love doing it with you, bro. Love seeing your face every week. Love learning from you. Love seeing your biz grow and helping as many people as we can, which is you listening to this. I'll stop getting emotional. We started off with grandpa, and then I went into parenting emotions. I'm running the gamut of all the parenting lack of sleep emotions right now. So anyways.
Well, I'm grinded through right now, man. Absolutely grinded through. I have the flu or something like that. And I'm just like, when you get like, it's like half the time you have chills, but then the other half the time you feel like really, really warm and you're like sweating profusely. I keep going back and forth with that. And like my neck and head are just like throbbing.
Yeah.
It's fun. Right. It's a lot of fun. It's that time of year though.
Builds character.
Okay. That was probably the worst intro we've ever done.
But it's all right. We love you guys.
I know. I'm just kidding. So again, we're almost 6 years into this thing. And part of the reason why we have been doing this for so long and have the stable of awesome supporters is because we get to bring on really, really cool guests, really, really cool guests. And Craig is a phenomenal guest. He was one of our first, man. Like, I feel like he was probably in our first 5 to 10, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And Craig actually hired me to do some writing for The Athletic when he was running the Detroit operation. I did some video breakdowns and some writing for the Red Wings. And then now he's just been promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted a bunch of different time. And now he's got a lot of responsibility there at The Athletic now. And just, you talk to anybody in the industry, just a phenomenal guy. And you have to be a phenomenal guy to write a book like this, where 10 of the most powerful people in our game, like, sit down to talk with them and like really kind of not reveal secrets, but like just reveal a lot about their process and stuff like that. Hockey is a game that is pretty secretive at times. Like, people don't want to give away all their information and stuff like that. And Craig did a phenomenal job in this book. Like I said, I legit read this thing in 2 days. Like, I could not put the thing down. And so just a really good book and just a really good dude. And you guys are going to love this. Like, imagine getting into the minds of 10 of like the smartest hockey people in the game.
I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard Toph in the last hour and a half say, I read this book in 2 days. This guy is jacked up about this book. All right.
I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Yoo-hoo, Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah. Like, Toph is 100% all in this book. I haven't read it because I'm dadding my life away, and he hasn't come out with the picture version yet. But one day I will get to it. But I do know that Craig is an unbelievable guy. He absolutely crushed. In our first couple episodes he came on, he was unbelievably gracious, and he had me on at the start of COVID when I dropped my first online training program, and I was giving it away to anybody whose parents lost their jobs in all around the world. And I gave away, a lot of that first program, and he helped me, showcase it to the world on his podcast back in the day, which was super helpful and awesome. You guys are going to love this episode. I'm sure the book is unbelievable. We got some really cool stories in this episode for those of you who really care about the NHL and learn about, why the best teams are the best from the back, not the players.
Totally, man. Totally. Also want to say thank you to all of our Hockey Think Tank community members. We had an unreal call this weekend with head coach of Michigan, one of Jeff and I's best friends, Brandon Arado, where our community members got the chance to talk some hockey with Coach Nar, and it was really, really cool. And so I'm just very, very appreciative of everybody in that community. Again, it's, we have a lot of different perks that we have in there, different drills, videos, advice, all that kind of stuff. But we have a lot of really passionate hockey people in there that help each other out too. And then we get the opportunity to bring on some of our friends to be able to interact with people. And so we're going to continue to do that every month, where we're going to bring on a high level hockey guest to interact with our community. And yeah, man, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it, on Sunday?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And, we're one of the best coaches in all of college hockey who works with so many unbelievable players in the off seasons with his own business, NHL, Division One, KHL, players all over the world that are unbelievable. And for us to be able to bring to our community members the ability to ask questions at somebody at that high of a level in the game, really cool for Toph and I to be able to do that and facilitate that for our listeners who are part of the community. So massive thank you to Brandon Arado for coming on and spending 40 minutes of his Sunday night with us and all of our listeners.
100%, man. 100%. So if you want to join the community, there's over 160 people in there already. Go to community.thehockeythinktank.com. That is community.thehockeythinktank.com. And we'll have a good time. There's a lot of stuff in there that can make you a better hockey parent, better hockey player, better hockey coach, and having the ability to shoot the breeze with some of these really high level hockey people is a lot of fun, and the value that we try to provide with there. So with that, let's get over to Craig. But before we do get over to Craig, we do have some people to thank. First, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for all of your coaching education needs. Thousands of drills, whiteboard explanations from some really high level hockey people, the ability to go in and draw your drills. We actually did a coaches call today with all of the coaches that are doing our youth organization blueprint. So we're working with 14 different youth organizations right now. And so many people were sharing drills, and they all had icehockeysystems.com. Like it's just a phenomenal site. So we've partnered with them to do a associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. Incredibly low price and high value. This is an absolute must if you are a youth organization. So go to icehockeysystems.com today and look up the associations platform. Jeffrey, go.
Massive thanks to Train Heroic. You guys hear me say it every episode. Train Heroic is the amazing app that allows me to work with well over 1,000 players in season here. Right now, I've got a couple of USHL teams that I train, a couple of NAHL junior teams, NA3, U18 midget AAA, high school, U14 at-home programs for a couple of teams, Westchester Express South, a couple of Division III teams, ACHA teams. Like, guys, if you're listening and your team is going to CrossFit, please, for the love of God, stop it. I can't tell you how many BCHL and NAHL teams are sending their teams to CrossFit in season. Like, awful. Please stop. That right there is the reason that I started training teams online in season. So they wouldn't be doing that. And you could actually train your teams for less money and train them to be better at hockey, and not sending the people that have no idea what they're doing training hockey players, especially in season. The stories I've heard this year alone in the NA and the BC of CrossFit workouts and what it's doing to players, it's killing me, guys. So that is the reason I started this. If your team or organization wants to work with me, reach out. It's hilariously cheap price per player, videos of everything. And Train Heroic allows me to do all that and give back to the community and train people at such a low price. So thank you to Train Heroic, and also Cure Nutrition. You guys know the deal. Cure Nutrition, CBD company I'm with, been using them for almost 2 years now. I take their products twice a day, every single day. Had 14 concussions. Obviously, recovery and long-term health are both massively important to me. I also work a very physically demanding job every day, doing a lot of physical labor, a lot of physical work, putting myself out there intensely. Recovery is a massive process, or a massively important process for me, and it's the reason I'm able to do all the things I do physically every single day. And that CBD helps me. So if you have any questions on CBD, what, how, when, where, why, all the things, why does it work? How does it work? What does it help with? Please reach out to me. All right. I'm certified in endocannabinoid nutrition, or use my discount code GMBM by going to curednutrition.com and try any of their products and get a disky on the bisky on me. What an idiot.
Disky on the bisky. You can also get a disky on the bisky by going to helioshockey.com and using the coupon code ThinkTank, one word. If you're not familiar with Helios, it is a sensor that you put into your shoulder pads that gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play, particularly when we're talking about stride mechanics and what the kids absolutely love in a hustle score. So basically, whenever you move, this thing lights up and it shows where you're going. And it also syncs up with your video, whatever video you're using, Live Barn, iPad, phone, whatever. And it will have your shifts cut up for you immediately after the game. Absolute absolute game changer. And so go to helioshockey.com and use the coupon code Think Tank. You'll get 20% off your pro annual or your pro 24-month subscriptions. Or go to helioshockey.com/teams for more information if you want to get this for your whole team. So helioshockey.com today. Also want to thank sponsor Crossbar. I actually just spoke with these guys today about some other different things. Man, this isn't, I've said game changer. Like, this is a game changer for youth organizations. Talk about streamlining all of your operations and how crazy that could potentially be for your club. They do a phenomenal job with that. And so it's an end-to-end software solution for managing and running your youth hockey organization. I've talked to a lot of like presidents, and so many of them are switching from Sports Engine over to Crossbar just because it's so much easier to use. There's so much better functionality. It's not as clunky. Just a phenomenal product.
We use it in 2 of the organizations that I run their training for, and it's made my life so much easier.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. Registration set up in minutes for lessons, drop-ins, or family skates, or for registration for the season. There's a club scheduler that makes things easy to use, a 5-star mobile app so you can communicate out to all your families, financial tools and reporting, facility and rink manager reporting, volunteer management, like you name it, they do it, and just makes life so much easier. So go to crossbar.org today. And last but not least, thank you. I know we've already done it, but thank you to all of our amazing listeners. We love you guys so much and continue to grind this baby out week after week and continue to get on these awesome guests like Craig Custance to tell you about the inner workings of 10 of the most powerful people in the NHL. And if you could do us a solid, we would very much appreciate every time you interact with us on social media, subscribing and downloading our podcast, commenting and leaving us ratings and reviews on your podcast apps. That just goes a long way to when people are trying to search for a hockey podcast, our name will come up first. And so if you could do that for us, that would be absolutely incredible. And again, we appreciate you guys so much. Can't believe it's almost been 6 years. And with that, you guys are going to absolutely love this conversation. So without further ado, here we go with Craig Custance. Nothing gets me more excited than the thrill of the beginning of the fall hockey season. From the NHL on down, there's nothing better than competing with your teammates to start the year. Personally, I'm pumped for this year's quest for the Stanley Cup. Last year's season was incredible, and this one seems to be even better at the start of the season. And when I'm looking for tickets to see games live, I always use the Game Time app. I've used this app to get unreal deals all the way leading up to the game. It's really user-friendly and makes getting tickets so much easier through a new feature called Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm going to be in Boston next month and use Game Time to get tickets to go see a game when they're playing the Columbus Blue Jackets to see some former players that I have. It was so incredibly easy to use because it's curated to my wants and even customizes your spot for you throughout the game. On the app, you can get a panoramic view from your seat. In the app, before you even buy it, there's a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. Pucks dropping on the 24-25 season, and get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. All available lines and odds from DraftKings Sportsbook app are for upcoming games. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 888-467-3669. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast repeat guest, but it's been quite a while since we've had you on. Craig Custance. Craig, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I was on a podcast and another one where it had been like a long time, and the first comment was that was the longest smoke break ever by somebody between appearances. I started, yeah, it's been a minute, but I'm glad to be back.
For sure. Well, I will tell everybody. So I read this book in 2 days. I legit read this book in 2 days. Could not put the freaking thing down. It was unbelievable. I'm obsessed with team building. I'm obsessed with learning what it takes to be great. And there's so many great little lessons from some of the biggest names in the game in this thing. And the first question I had for you, Craig, as it relates to the book is like, what are some of the similarities that you saw in these GMs that you had the opportunity to research and talk to very extensively? And I'm going to ask you about obviously they're very different people in a lot of ways. But what were some of like the key takeaways that you had in terms of, things that they did similarly that allowed them to be really good at their job?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me first just start by saying there's like when you guys watch hockey, there's no one way to win a game. Like there can be one system that's really successful and a completely different system that also wins a Stanley Cup, and then people start chasing trends. I found like the people I talked to were so different. Like somebody like Kyle Dubas or Julian Brisebois, you see some similarities, but they're so different than Jim Rutherford or a Megan Duggan, who I think is going to be a GM. And we talked to, I talked to owners and team presidents and, people and all up and down the organization for this book. And so I think that like one common theme was there's a lot of different ways to lead an organization and still have success, right? So, easy way to say there's no one way. I would say the one thing that came up time and time again was how necessary it is to make really difficult decisions and not wait on it. And I think we've all been through that in life where you put something off and ends up festering. And so, I think Lou Lamoriello is somebody who was in this book, and kind of historically you see like this is somebody who does not mess around, making moves or trades and things that may seem very unpopular because he believes it's necessary. And he said something that really stuck with me. He's like, when you delay, generally, if there's something wrong in your organization, people know it. Like the team knows it, the players know it, and they're just looking up to see if somebody's going to deal with it and make the difficult choice. And he's like, so you have to do it not just to solve it. You have to do it to make sure your high achievers understand that hard things are being done in the organization. And I found that like Lou's early on, and then the last chapter is George McPhee. And if you look at how they run the Vegas Golden Knights, clearly, and we talked about it a lot, like George said, he learned a lot with Washington Capitals. He learned not to mess around with coaches. Like they cycled through some maybe not great hires in Washington. He learned how to manage an owner, which I think is a really important thing in hockey if you're in a front office. And so same thing. He's just like, I'm going to have those difficult conversations early on with the owner. Here's how we're going to do things. And then if I see a better coach who's available, or I see something that's off, I'm going to make that change. And I think that was the thing. Like these were all people willing to do really hard things over and over again.
Yeah, that was definitely a theme that I got out of it too, is like, you're going to have to make hard decisions and you're going to have to be the bad guy at times. And in your conversations, even with these GMs, but then with the other people that you were talking to in different organizations, a lot of times those decisions are going to piss people off. Like you think of George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon there in Vegas, people call them cutthroat based on getting rid of players who are very popular. People have been there forever. How did they, when you were communicating with them and with the organizations, how did they kind of manage that? Is it just like, hey, this is my job and it's my job to be tough decision? How did they like work on the repair afterwards? Like, what was that? Because that definitely was a theme that I thought in the book was like, these guys make tough decisions, man. Like really,
it's
really tough decisions.
I think it's lonely. That was a theme that was kind of the unintentional theme where there's a point where I grabbed Brian McClellan and right after a trade deadline in Florida, and he had just traded, 3 or 4 people that helped the Capitals win the Stanley Cup. And he's like, the coaches are mad at me. The players are mad at me. Everyone, so there's almost like this loneliness that comes with also having to make these decisions that came up over and over again. How everyone deals with it. I think first of all, I think there's some people who aren't cut out to deal with it and they don't make great, like, first chair people. Like, I mean, we see it all the time with coaches, whatever. Like, that person's a great assistant, but not a great head coach. And that person maybe is a great AGM, but shouldn't be running it. And, I think George said it. He's like, the second you can't do it, you should stop. Like, get out. Like, if you can't make, if you find yourself putting it off or not making these tough choices, you shouldn't be running the hockey team anymore. And so I think it's just like ripping the Band-Aid off, and then in some cases, some people may never talk to you again. Like, all of that's like really hard. I think of like somebody like Jim Nill. Like, it's fascinating because he is seen as like this, all class, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And, he also has to fire like somebody who is just seen as like the just high end, like, great guy. And he's sitting there and he's like, he's wrestling for weeks because he knows this decision is coming, and they all deal with it in different facets.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vex.
I was just going to ask, like, when they have to make these tough decisions, you say that you talk to a bunch of different people in the organization. Yeah. The best organizations, are they all on the same page? And even if they disagree with the leadership, like the top dog making that decision, even maybe they don't agree with it, but then they make that decision, are they all on board, falling in line? And did you find like a correlation between the teams that are winning more and have kind of that, like, okay, like whatever we decide, we're going at it? Because business teams, like, it's all the same. And you talked about in the beginning when you get on here, like, different systems win, different coaches win, and it's like, it's all about buy-in. Like, success comes from buy-in, so that everybody's going in the same page. So did you see that? Did you see the opposite?
No, I mean, I think there's definitely times where they're not on the same page. I think I caught Julian Breezeball in a time where he had to make the Ryan McDonough decision, and he ended up essentially like using waivers as leverage and trading him to Nashville. And I imagine if you had gone into the coaching room at that point and said, hey, Ryan McDonough, they're moving Ryan McDonough out, there's nobody that would have been happy with that. And even if you can intellectually say, I agree because of future cap challenges, this is better for the organization. If you're the coach, you're like, we're not any better today than we were yesterday. And I think I think intellectually you have to be on the same page and you want the input of your whole team, but there's going to be times where I'm sure they sit there and go, how are we better right now than we were yesterday? Like that I mean, I think that's the hard part.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've seen in the best, like, GM head coach relationships? And, you talk about some of those in the book, but it's extremely important to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Facts, like you were saying. I think the best organizations are streamlined from the scouts all the way up to the GM. Everybody's on this, there's a why, there's a mission, there's, similarities and things like that. But particularly the head coach and the GM, what have you seen from kind of the most successful tandems out there?
Yeah. I mean, you want them aligned. And I think, there's a story, where the GM wasn't completely convinced it was the right coach, even when they made the hire. And so I think the best ones are ones where they're speaking the same language. I caught Brad Treliving when he came into Toronto. We sat down, we were in Traverse City and went to this like dive bar that was unbelievable. And he had been on the job maybe 2 or 3 months with the Maple Leafs, and so had to make a head coaching decision on a coach that he didn't know. And so, there's just a lot of time and spent talking about players and just getting aligned in philosophy. And I think there's another person, Brad, talked pretty openly about how he dealt with coaches in Calgary, and in some cases didn't follow his gut. And I think it's just making sure that the person that you make a hire that you're convicted about and that you're able to stick with through kind of the hard times and the good times, and then just making sure kind of organizationally and philosophically they agree with you, right? You don't want them having a different kind of way of developing culture or whatever than you do. And I think that like that's the important thing.
Yeah, totally. Like if those two people, like if the GM is drafting players that the head coach doesn't like those qualities, or if they're signing people and the head, like, that's not good. That's
like,
not good.
So like Julian was actually really good on this. I don't know if you remember, but like he talked about his hiring process. And so he, one of the things he said is he presents scenarios to coaches. Like, this is a guy that hired Guy Boucher back in the day to coach Hamilton when he was with the Canadians. And that ended up being a really kind of non-traditional, but great, like it was a great hire at the time. And then brought in John Cooper, who was, in the USHL in Green Bay, and not exactly a guy that was at the top of every list to get a big promotion. And so Julian, like we got into it a lot about his hiring style and how he kind of discovers these people. And one of the things he does is he just presents different scenarios to them. He's not trying to like connect with them personally. He's just saying to them, he wants to learn how they operate and kind of make decisions. And so he'll say, hey, you're down to your last roster cut. Here's player A, and this is how they play. And incredible skill, but takes plays off. And here's player B who would run through a wall. Like, who are you keeping? And he's like, you take them through these scenarios. There's no right or wrong answer, but I'm sure in Julian's mind, he's like, I'm probably doing player B or whatever. And so it just helps to make sure you're aligned in the hiring process. It's funny because I've used that. I was literally doing job interviews last week where I just started presenting scenarios like to people, like, here's this breaking news. How would you cover it? And what's your coverage plan? And like that was pulled directly from that conversation with Julian.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Yeah. They have like a standard book of like different scenarios that they give. Like, if I remember correctly, it's the same questions for everybody. And then they get to know them after that and stuff like that. I have to imagine that, like, again, you talked about right or wrong answer. And this is where I think a lot of coaches, especially young coaches in hockey, kind of err. And that's make a decision and have some conviction by it. I feel like there's way too many people in this game, even at the NHL level, who just tell people what they want to hear just so they can get a job. But at the end of the day, like the really, really good ones who are hiring those people, that's not what they want. Like they don't want yes men. They want people who are going to make decisions and have the ability to make the hard decisions. And because these guys got to make a lot of hard ones, and they need to surround themselves with really good people too.
100%. And that was the other thing is, again, I George McPhee was fascinating on this. I think in part because they were starting from scratch. So you got to hire everybody, like you're starting from zero. And so he got to bring in everybody. And so like they were so intentional about making sure they were hiring the best of the best in every single position, and then giving them a voice. They call it their war room. And as they were building up for the expansion draft, it was bringing in the analytics folks, it was bringing in the scouts, and George would try to sit. He said he would like kind of stay out of the conversation and let these people all have their say. And if you surround yourself with people that are trying to guess what you think, like you're not going to get any better. Like you surround yourself with people that have conviction, and at the end of the day, you have to make the decision. But that was one thing that struck me. Like oftentimes these best leaders are just really good listeners, and they're good at bringing the right people into the room
and making everyone feel included too.
100%.
And because then they're going to be more bought in. If they feel like, oh, I'm able to give some input here and I'm able to shape where we're taking this thing, they're going to be way more bought 100%. In. Like front office staff in sports, again, businesses, like anything like that, the more that people feel actually a part of it, and even though whether you honestly listen to their feedback or not, you're going to make the ultimate decision, but making people feel a part of something is going to get way more buy-in immediately. It just makes 100%. Sense that Vegas won right away because they were able to do that, and right away be able to start from like a really good position because they had a strong leader who did that.
So you're 100% right. I think what
as usual.
As usual. Yeah. I think what like really struck me about Vegas, like they come out like house of fire, they overachieve. And I think, some of us might have said, hey, these are the misfits. This is the culture. They care. We're going to extend these players. And they did the opposite. They like ran those guys out. And they moved through two coaches and going from Jared Gallant to Pete DeBoer, to Bruce Cassidy. And they kept making changes. And then they bring in Eichel and they bring in Pietrangelo. And I think it would have been really easy to get caught up in that early success and say, hey, we figured it out and we crushed the expansion draft and we have made all these draft picks and we're going to let those people develop. And they didn't. And they got like hammered for it. And I don't know. And I'm sure you guys talked to people in hockey that were like, man, Vegas, they're killing the culture of that team. People just ran them down. And they were like, they think they're smarter than everybody and all this stuff. And you're sitting there going, oh yeah, I kind of agree. And then at the end of the day, they're raising a Stanley Cup, and the big thing was, it goes back to what you're saying. They had conviction, and when I talked to Kelly about it, Kelly McCrimmon, their GM, he was just like, "Look, we broke things down, and you had to have a number one center to win a Stanley Cup, and you had to have a number one defenseman like Pietrangelo to win a Stanley Cup, and so." We, as good as we were playing or as good as we thought we were, we didn't have those ingredients that we thought were necessary to win a Stanley Cup. And so when those players the one thing he's like, he got a little defensive and he was like, I think we got labeled as we're chasing every shiny new object, right? Like, oh, Eichel's on the trade block. Let's go trade for him. But they were like, we were very, these were the things we identified championship teams needed and, made a point of going and getting them when they were available. And, even if it was at risk of, I guess, culture or certainly criticism.
That makes so much sense. And I think a big killer in the NHL is complacency. Complacency is something that Vegas didn't have. Like you said, they could have easily mailed it in after that first year. And you know what? I got job security probably for the next 3 or 4 years because of what we've been able to do. And we're going to do, but I think it also sends a message to the players like, hey, we are trying to get better here. We are trying, there's no status quo. And if the second you get comfortable, you're gone. And the second that we get comfortable, we're not going to win a Stanley Cup. We got close, but we didn't win it. And so I don't know. I think there's a lot of complacency at times in all levels of hockey and that just that mantra even of just we're always going to try and be better, even though it's going to piss some people off. That this club is in it to win it every year. And I think that 100%. Goes a long way message with the players.
And they don't always love the decision. I look again, what Tampa did with Steven Stamkos, and man, you sit there and go, the easy thing for the GM there to do, if you're trying to just survive and extend your contract, is to keep the popular player around, the captain. And then if it doesn't work out, you'd be like, well, we won Stanley. I think you put your neck out when you actually make the hard decision and say, we're going to get incrementally better in the future by making this tough decision. And I forgot who said it, and I'm sure it's a saying you've heard, but it came up more than once. And these leaders would say there's a difference between doing your job and keeping your job. We've all seen the people in hockey that are just trying to keep their job and they're surviving by whatever means necessary instead of actually doing their job well and ignoring kind of all that outside noise. And honestly, I tried to find people in talking to these people and studying them that I thought were, doing the job. And I think an example of that comes from Kyle Dubas. And, I spent some time with him, and I'm sure and I've talked to people in Toronto and done radio hits where, studying Kyle Dubas for championship success, you can say, okay, why are we going down this path? But I think Kyle is somebody who has constantly made tough decisions and is really process oriented and is somebody to learn from. And, he said something, when you talk about the decisions he had to weigh in Toronto around the core players there, there's a point in time where he could have made a move that probably bought him more years, right? If let's say you trade Mitch Marner after one of those playoff losses and say it was actually Mitch, that was the problem. You're buying yourself 2 or 3 as a GM. You're buying yourself 2 or 3 more years. Julian Brisebois said the same thing. If you guys remember, they lost to Columbus. They were the President's Trophy winners. They get upset by Columbus in the first round. And I think there was a lot of people that you could have fired John Cooper there, and Julian could have bought himself 2 or 3 more years or whatever. And And Julian said, no. Like the second you do that, you're putting it on that guy. Like he's like, we had to bring the whole group back because we were all accountable, and we weren't going to move one player, or we weren't going to fire the coach, because then it's easy for the players to say, oh yeah, it was on that person. And so I think there's times when you don't make a move, when you're actually, it's the harder thing to do than to make a move to make it look like you're doing things. And I think we see that all the time in sports, where people just do things for like job preservation, not because they believe it's the right thing.
The players know,
For sure.
The players all know, and deep down, like, yeah, everybody at the highest level of sport is playing for money and like lifelong security. You're trying to like set yourself up for life and things like that. But everybody wants to win. And whichever organization it falls under, or somewhere it's probably on those two ends of the spectrum. Like we're gonna win with this group. We will win with this group, or this organization will do anything to win. And when you come here, you want to win, and that's what we're attracting, is people that are willing to do anything and take a risk to win. I think especially that one, but both. If you know that's the culture coming in, like you're going to attract the right type of people. I think, you know what I mean, and that's obviously the building blocks is the character of the guys. And if it's known that like we're going there because we want to win a championship every single year, you're going to start attracting the people that are going to win you those championships.
Yep. I think, again, I know I feel like I'm like stumping for the Golden Knights, but like when you talk to the players there, like that, they know it. Like they know that they're going to do everything they can to win. And so that's where they want to go play. And that's become a destination. And like I've been covering this league long enough to remember where people were like, Vegas, hockey in Vegas is going to be a disaster. Like that was like there were people that thought it was such a terrible idea. And now we kind of just take it for granted. It's like, oh, it's this, emerging sports city, but it's become a destination. I think what Billy Zito has done in Miami, same thing, or in Florida, like that's become a destination and you see that over and over again. And where that mentality of we're going to do whatever it takes, even if like the players don't always agree with it, they want to end up playing on those teams.
Totally. I love it.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Well, let me dive into a few of the GMs here. Get a little bit
sure.
deeper, because some of these stories were awesome. The first guy I want to ask you about, and it's obviously a tragic one. Yeah, I would love for you to talk a little bit about Brad Treliving and Chris Snow. Chris Snow, for those that don't know, passed away about a year or so ago from ALS, and he was a rising star in all facets in management in the game. And so, but that was a very touching part of the book, Treliving and Snow's relationship. He was the GM in Calgary at the time, and Snow was the assistant GM. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship and how much it impacted you writing this book?
Yeah. I just got chills with you asking that question. I ended up writing that whole chapter like right after Chris had died, and talked to Brad, I think a month before. And what I was really just trying to show, Brad Treliving, you try to like lean into somebody's strengths and explain what has made them successful and allowed them to like, progress the way that Brad has in his career. And I think one of his greatest strengths is his abilities to develop the people around him and to kind of raise up the people around him. And so I thought Chris was a great example of it. And I remember, and I think I use this in the book, I remember Chris telling me, when Brad Treliving got hired, he was like, oh man, this, anytime there's a regime change and you weren't one of their guys, he just remembers thinking, here's another guy I have to prove myself to. I think he was hired by, gosh, I want to say Jay Feaster or Brian Burke. So he was another, another regime's hire. And not only that, he came from a non-traditional background. Chris was a sports writer. He'd worked at the Boston Globe and in Minneapolis. So he, wasn't a hockey guy by the purest definitions, didn't play the game. So here comes Brad, and Chris is just like, oh man, I've got to prove it again. And when Brad was hired, he was on vacation. So like one strike against you, you're out like on a road trip or whatever when the new boss comes in. And what was really cool was Brad like gave him the opportunity to win him over. Like I think, again, the easy thing to do is to come in here and sweep everybody out of the organization and bring in all your people that you know and you're comfortable with. And instead, Brad made an effort to get to know Chris. And I think Kelsey, Chris's wife, put it this way, like realized pretty quickly, like he was the smartest guy in the room. Like, and Chris always was, like whatever room he was in, he was the smartest guy. And so Brad just looked for opportunities to develop him as an executive. And it was, okay, you're known for analytics and you helped develop the analytics department. Let's start working on contracts and let's get out scouting. And so he would, he started doing contracts, and he just really was intentional about developing him as an executive. And I don't know, we talk about, in the hockey space, we talk about player development a lot. I don't know if we've ever talked about, front office development and like making your AGM better, or turning a scout into an AGM or whatever it is. But, Brad, that takes time. It takes intentionality. And Brad did that with Chris. And the payoff is, Chris developed into this, one of the sharpest minds in that Calgary front office. And, it is an unbelievable story. And I just thought that showed so much about Brad and his management style, especially going into Toronto, where he had to, again, make some assessments of the previous staff, had to bring in some of his own people. And I just wanted readers to understand, that this is how he approaches it.
I love that. That was a really, really beautiful and heart-wrenching part, going through that relationship. And I can't imagine what it was like interviewing people and writing it.
It was hard. Like, I mean, yeah, I was, at one point you're like, you're in tears. You're just like, this is so hard. Like this is, Chris touched a lot of people. And so when you talk to those people and you hear those stories, it's, it's amazing.
Totally. Well, you mentioned Treliving, coming into these different spots, and I feel like a really important strength of a lot of these GMs is having the ability to take in all of this information that they're getting from their scouts, from their coaches, from their analytics department, from their business office, probably. And really kind of like synthesizing and streamlining all that information to be able to make the decisions that they make to help to build these cup contenders. What are some of the things that you saw with some of these guys and girls, with Megan, like, just in terms of their ability to really take a lot of information and figure out what's important and then make their decisions?
I mean, there's a couple things. I think one thing that was interesting to me is how much they lean on each other. Like that came up over and over again, GMs calling other GMs for advice, even, the off season, and, taking a trip together and kind of working through some things. And so I think, again, the Kyle Dubas chapter, I grabbed him after they had lost to the Canadiens in the playoffs. And, one of the people that he talked to was Brian McClellan. And when you think about the Toronto Maple Leafs and where they were at that point, and you think about the Washington Capitals, where they had kind of perennially underachieved, and there was like open questions in hockey. Can you win with Alex Ovechkin as your captain? Like, is this a player you can win with? And so I think there was a lot of similarities between the Capitals and kind of where the Maple Leafs are or were in terms of being built around talent, but not winning when you need to win the most. And so Kyle, said he called a lot of people as he was trying to figure out kind of what to do. Again, I'm a process guy, so I loved talking to both Kyle and Brian about exit interviews and what are you asking the players and what kind of input. And I thought Brian and the Capitals were really interesting on this, because when you take you get all these inputs and you talk to players after a playoff series loss, you have some guys that are like, hey, this guy's got to go. Like they tell some people are like, don't ever break this team up. We're going to do it. So you have really emotional, passionate responses. In fact, I'm sure you've been part of those conversations, and especially when you're doing these interviews after an emotional time. And so basically Brian's advice to Kyle was, you do all your work, you take in all this information, and then you have to make the call. Like you have to trust your instincts. You have to make the call. Don't do what you think the media wants you to do. Don't even do what you think the players want you to do necessarily. Because in the case of the Washington Capitals, they did not do what the players wanted. And Brian McClellan said there was two very, very clear instructions or like thoughts from the players that they thought needed to be done after they had lost to the Penguins. This is the summer before they won their Stanley Cup. And Brian would not tell me what those two things were, but he said, we did neither of them. Like it was very clear, like the players want us to do these two things. And he's like, it could have been a disaster the next year. And it nearly was. Like if you remember that start of the next season, the Capitals were it didn't go particularly well. And then, they put it together, they win a Stanley Cup, and, and all's well that ends well. But, they didn't take the advice of the players in that case. So I think it's just about getting as much information as you can and then relying on your experience to make a decision and then sticking with it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not an easy thing to do. Like we just talked about different teams, and some held firm, and didn't do the things. And then you got Vegas, who's like, no, we're going to let's go. We're going to do this.
Right.
And that's where it goes.
So that's why you can't even make like conclusions of like, what's the best way? It's like, make the deals constantly. And so like, that's why I maybe it's clear in this book, I am fascinated by the Maple Leafs and their core four and all of the decision, because it's like that's whoever's running that team and in this moment in time has to deal with those exact questions. And if you talk to one GM who kept the team together and won a Stanley Cup, I'm guessing that's gonna influence them. If you talk to George McPhee, who says we constantly were getting better and these were the ingredients we thought we needed, we were making moves. And again, there's no right answer until you win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, totally. Okay, another person I want to ask you about, Craig, Megan Duggan. Megan Duggan. This story was unreal because you go back, she's working in management with the Devils now. I think you said it even earlier, like she's going to be a GM in the NHL one day.
100%.
Just seems like an absolute go-getter, just smart, decisive. And you talk about the story of them kind of standing up to USA Hockey. And we had Kendall Coyne on the podcast years ago as a lot of that stuff was going on. And we know a lot of those women, and that was a crazy, crazy time to say the least. So can you talk a little bit about Megan Duggan and what you thought made her so special as it relates to obviously the story of what they did standing up to USA Hockey for equality, but also what makes her so valuable in a GM potential role?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there. I think, right off the hop, as you read it, you realize she's super type A. So this is somebody that is, timing meetings down to the second and it pays attention to every last detail. I think what I admired most, or what I pulled most from Megan, was this is a team that lost to Canada in the Olympics multiple times, including, in Sochi, that just the most heartbreaking, puck hits the post. Like just you lose a gold medal by inches. And basically Megan, as captain of the team, was like, all right, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? Like that was their mantra. And they're like, we're going to do everything differently going back over the course of the next 4 years. And, detailed some of it was like, I don't know how beneficial it was, you're visualizing a practice or, all kind of but it was really around mental toughness. It was around, there was a lot of psychology involved, but at the end of the day, it was about, hey, we haven't achieved what we want to achieve. So we're just going to find another gear and we're going to get everyone aboard. And I think what Megan's special skill was uniting that team to convince them, that they needed to do that. And that's hard to do. Like when you're sitting there and say, hey, we're going to have a practice blindfolded, there's going to be players that are like, why how is this going to help us beat Canada? There's nothing. And so I think Megan as a leader, that just speaks to her ability to round everybody up and get them on board. And then, in the middle of it all, there's that fight with USA Hockey. So not only are you trying to change the way you train and play the game, they even changed like their style of play. You're taking on your bosses, and I don't know what kind of mental fortitude it takes to do that, but it was unbelievable. And of course they won. And again, it goes back to being a leader, and she was captain of that team. And so I think the moment in that fight that struck me as most impressive was there was a time when there was basically a battle to get at the next level of players down before USA Hockey did. So they're calling all of these women and other people that were going to be replacement players on that World Championships team. And Megan was like, I'm calling all of them. Like, we're going to divvy this up. But she just felt as captain, they needed to hear from her. And her dad said, like, she had a spreadsheet out, and there she's in the back room of the family home, and she's calling and talking to parents and saying, hey, you're going to be offered the chance of your lifetime to play on this team. And I'm, as a captain, asking you not to do it, and asking the parents not to do it. And just the willingness to take all that on. And there's a million Megan Duggan stories that chapter could have been 6 million pages, because she's just willing to take it on, put in the work, and get better. And I think she's going to be an incredible GM. One thing like that Tom Fitzgerald said, he's like, there's the one thing he realized with Megan and hiring some of these other women stars is just like they've had to do so many things on their own. Like, if you think about the players of that era, like they're fighting USA Hockey, but not only that, like they're doing logo design and setting up the spreadsheet. Nobody's doing anything for them. So he's like, she showed up at this organization like fully formed as a front office executive who not only played at the highest levels, but could do anything. Like, she could, anything you needed in the office. And he's like, it's been unbelievable.
There is so much value. I mean, obviously, like it's different, but there's so much value into having to do the shit work and having to do the grunt work to ultimately working your way up. Because eventually you're going to have to manage those people, at the end of the day. I think of my year as a graduate assistant at Miami of Ohio, and that was like the best education year of my life, because I had to do all the things that nobody else wanted to do, and the grunt work. And there's nothing. And as a writer, I can't even imagine, like, you're managing a ton of different people now. It's got to be pretty similar in writing, huh?
Yeah. No, it is. And and it's funny because I think the opposite, when you're dealing with former players, on the men's side that are superstars, or even not, like, I've talked to a lot of these players, the second they retire, they don't know how to do anything. It's the opposite. They're like, I've never opened a checking account, or I don't know how to like book a flight, because, and I'm not like criticizing, like somebody had done that since they were 8 years old for them. And so they have all of the knowledge of what it takes to win and to excel at the highest levels. But like, in terms of some of the other stuff, they're starting at zero, and they have to learn all of that as, at 35 or whatever.
Wild. I gotta go back to something you said, because I obviously haven't read the book, because kid can't even read. No, I've got a newborn. It's actually not a good joke, because our country's reading statistics are actually embarrassing. But I digress. It had a newborn baby, so have not checked the book out yet. But can you go over that story about the blindfolded practice, please? Because my ears went, what?
Let's I saw your face when you said that. I was like, ooh, Vex.
Yeah,
there was. Yeah, I think there was a point. Like, I don't remember the details of it, and I think it was just said like in a list of like things we tried in the spirit of doing things completely differently. There was a point where there may have been blindfolds at practice, but you have to ask Megan or somebody from the team about how that went down. But I know, no, go ahead, Topher.
I think that they, like, instead of going on the ice for practice, they sat in the stands with the blindfolds on and like visualized. I don't think they were actually blindfolded
on the ice. I don't know. I think that'd be great.
I played in a blind charity hockey game, and I would close my eyes out there to try and make it like even me against the blind guys playing. Oh my God. So hard to do. So I think if they did what Toph did, I don't think they're out there running around.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's
pretty dangerous.
Two other guys I want to ask you about, Craig. One is Lou Lamoriello. Lou Lamoriello is one of these guys who Fort Knox a little bit. Like, it's very hard to get anything out of him, but I think he did a great job of kind of telling his story. What was it like to interview him. What was it like to interview those around him, and just tell us a little bit about what makes him tick, because he's the OG, and
Yeah.
as quote unquote old school as so many people think he is, everybody has so much respect for him, and look to him for advice and everything else. So what was your experience like with him?
Yeah, it was interesting because I went into that one. I mean, look, like Lou hasn't won the Stanley Cup in a while, right? Like, so you sit there and go, is this somebody that in today's modern game, like, is this somebody that we should be studying at the length that I would want to? But the more you sat and talked to him, and you're talking about culture building, you're talking about why he does the things he does. He's constantly learning and evolving, and I think that that's something to talk about. And I think B, I think there's just a lot of misperceptions about him, in part because it goes back to what we were saying. He makes difficult decisions, or he makes unpopular decisions about players he's acquiring or contracts he's doing, and he has zero desire to really explain himself. Like, he doesn't care. And you have some GMs who are over the top, like they're not over the top. I prefer this, but they are very transparent about explaining they're doing press conferences and they're doing like really good. Like, Ken Holland, when he was in Detroit or Edmonton, Kenny would explain why he was doing things, and he wanted the fans to understand it. And he was really accessible and really successful. Lou Lamoriello is the opposite. He has no interest. And I think that's part of the like mystique about him is, or even misunderstanding, is that, he's this closed door, and he's all these different things, because he doesn't correct any of it ever. But in reality, when you talk to people, the kind of the things that he does to inspire loyalty of his staff, and the steps he takes behind the scenes without telling anybody, not just for like people in that organization, but around the league. Like, he's constantly doing things. He just would never say it. I had more than one person say, like, Lou would never want me to tell you this, but every Christmas we get this from him, and I haven't talked to him in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these little things he does, and the way he treats people that really inspires loyalty. And I think, that's fascinating.
Big time. It was really like, he's obviously such a legend in the game and still doing it at his age. And the Islanders they haven't really been Stanley Cup contenders, but they have been. They made the the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row, not too long ago. And he's done the job there. Last guy I want to ask you about, and this one got me emotional reading it, was Jim Nill.
Yeah.
Jim Nill talking about how much he cares about people, his story with his wife getting breast cancer, and then how that affected him. And Jim Nill also built the best drafting and developing system in Detroit back in the day. Yeah. And he arguably has the best drafting and developing system today in Dallas. What were your overall thoughts on Jim Nill? Just the person? Yeah. And then Jim Nill, the GM, because he seems just like an unbelievably special dude.
Yeah. He seems to be, and I never profess to really know any of these people, because we've, like, one of the fears of me doing this book was like, there's scandal and there's all these things you don't want to look bad after the fact. And with somebody like Jim, you feel hopefully pretty good that you won't. And he's one of those that I think was difficult to do, because he had, Jim is accessible. Like, he was happy that we sat and watched a game together. And, I wanted to talk about scouting because he's so good at it, but he also is never going to talk about anything he's done. The whole conversation is deflecting. It's, you start saying, hey, Jim, you had this Daniel Alfredson in Ottawa, and, Datsuk and Zetterberg and Cronwall in Detroit. And now you look at Dallas, and every time you would say a player, he'd be like, oh, that was that scout. That was this scout. That was Håkan Anderson. That was, Joe Mack. And he never wants to take credit. So if you read that chapter, it ends up being told through the eyes mostly of everybody around him. There's not a ton of Jim Nill quotes in it, or in the way there is some of the other ones. In part because, that's his nature, and he's really humble. And so I guess at the end of the day, it's about inspiring the people around you to work hard and put in the extra effort. And Jim does that by, putting in the work and making these personal connections with the people that work for him. And there was in that book, there's story after story about the things that he's doing behind the scenes that you don't see. But also not just that, like, also the really smart hockey things he does. And like I like dove into a series of really small moves that ended up to them having that draft where they got 3 franchise players, and it's because he's really good at his job. Like a lot of there might be a lot of really good people, but they're not drafting like superstars in the 3rd round or whatever.
Yeah, 3. What was it? Heiskanen, Ottinger, and Robertson in one draft.
In one draft. Like you can do that over the course of 10 years, and you're probably doing okay as an organization. To do that in one draft is unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Craig, this was awesome. It was great to catch up again, and great to have you on to talk about your book. For everybody out there, like, this is a must read, guys. Like, if you're interested in hockey, if you're interested in the NHL, I legit read this in 2 days. I don't know how many pages, it's like 300 pages. Like, it was 2 days. I couldn't put the freaking thing down. It was awesome. It's called The Franchise, The Business of Building Winning Teams. And Craig, you can kind of get it anywhere, right? Barnes and Noble, Amazon, anywhere.
Yep. I just want Vex to read it. That's all. That's my goal.
Toph will draw me pictures, and then I'll be able to see what it's all about.
little scaled down version. I'll have
there we go.
I'll have Paige just draw some pictures.
Oh, it's a big one.
There you go. Well, Craig, we're going to keep you here for a couple more minutes for a little 10 questions. And the 10 questions is going to be housed in our Hockey Think Tank community. But so great to catch up and talk about your book, and really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.